All right, howdy folks. This here's a video going over the Wambaugh White & Company civilian shirt. My experience sewing it, what worked well for me, how I could also improve on some of my techniques here in the future. So going through with this, I decided to make the shirt, not because I'm a Civil War reenactor or anything like that, but because I wanted to learn a new skill. And I saw these kits as a great opportunity to do so. Overall, the kit costs, I think, $45. I placed my order and then I received the kit in the mail, within a week. So within a week of placing my order, I had it in hand, ready to sew on it. All in all, it took me probably a month of sewing on the weekends and occasionally on the weeknights, and probably within that month, let's see, about 18 hours or so to sew it together to this final product. Now, before I started sewing on it, I had no prior sewing experience really whatsoever, other than sewing on a few patches on some sleeves for some World War II reenacting stuff that I do. But other than that, I really had no sewing experience whatsoever. So even if you don't have any sewing experience, you can still put together one of these kits and have a pretty solid finished product. Within the kit, you get all the material. It's cut, ready to go. You also get a set of instructions. I think there's probably 4 or 5 pages here with that. And you get your thread. You'll get some beeswax as well to sew some things with. I would recommend getting either probably some of these little chalk pencils or a chalk roller. They come in white, blue, different colors, a buttonhole chisel to help you out with that. But other than that, you really don't need a bunch of extra tools or anything. All you're working with is a needle, your thread. And if you can follow a line, you can trace a line on some fabric and then trace it with a needle essentially. You can sew together one of these kits. It is really not that hard. And I really can't stress that enough, is that putting together one of these kits is not that hard. The hardest thing is really understanding the instructions and understanding what pieces you have in front of you. If you can do that, you can put together one of these kits. Now, there were a few steps in the instructions that I had to think about, stop, kind of scratch my head a little bit. I know you can email them or call them and they'll help you out, but I didn't have to do that with this kit. But there were a few things within the instructions that I kind of scratched my head on and made some mistakes with, but got fixed. I mean, and one thing to keep in mind with these kits is you will make mistakes. There's no doubt about that. But no mistakes you make are going to be like uncorrectable unless you like cut the material and mess it up like that. Every other thing you can, take a seam ripper you can get from the store for like $1, undo your threads and then do it again. Your only thing that you're going to waste is your time, essentially. And if you're doing hand stitching, things take a lot of time. But there's no mistake that you can make that's really going to be unfixable unless you're cutting stuff up. One of the first problems, well, not really problems, but instances working on the kit where I had to stop and scratch my head was with the construction of the sleeves. One thing about these kits is that the instructions and the pictures that are in the instructions are very good, but they're not perfect. So with somebody with like no prior experience whatsoever working on one of these kits, is that just knowing what's what and what's in the kit isn't fully explained. One of the things that I think could be a lot better with the instructions is if they had a layout on one page that went through the different pieces of the garment that you're going to get and then what those pieces are. That's one of the first things after taking this stuff out of the box was that, well, I'm dealing with a bunch of squares of fabric here and I didn't really know what was what. I got it figured out, but it was kind of tricky for us looking at it. You're going to get 2 sleeves, you're going to get 2 cuffs, you're going to get the collar, you're going to get the body, and you're going to get the facing material here for the inner part of where you put the shirt together. And it's slipping my mind as of right now what those are called. Let's see. the placket pieces. You're going to get 2 pieces for the plackets. One of them is going to be a wider piece, which is what the buttonholes are going to go into, and then you're also going to get a skinnier piece for the side that your buttons are actually going to go on. And that is basically it. You're going to get the collar, the body, the 2 placket pieces, the 2 sleeves, and then you're going to get 2 cuffs to go on the sleeves. One of the sections that kind of threw me for a loop at first was the first instruction here is join cuff to sleeve using a back stitch. In that picture there, it doesn't show a cuff. So I was like, okay, so do I make the cuff out of the sleeve material? Is one of these other 2 pieces a cuff? Yes, one of the other 2 pieces was the cuff. So in that first picture, it shows the pleated sleeve, but on the other side of the pleated sleeve is also the cuff that is on the other side of that material, which you can clearly see here in the second picture. It just doesn't blatantly explain it here in the instructions. The other section of the instructions that threw me for a loop was in attaching the plackets here to the body. You'll notice that when you get the body on one of these kits that the neck slit is not perfectly centered. There's going to be one section that is longer than the other side. So this side right here is short, this side is long. The longer side of the placket material is sewed to the shorter side of the body, whereas the shorter, skinnier placket piece is sewed to the longer part of the body. I didn't really realize that when I got the kit, and when I sewed the plackets on, I sewed them onto the wrong sides. So that was one of my big mistakes here making this kit. But, you know, really with an hour and a half or 2 hours of fixing it, then I had no issues whatsoever. Sewing the collar on, I had no issues with. Sewing the gussets on to the sleeves, I had no issues with. That was something that they even noted in the instructions here, was that if you have an issue with it, then go to their website, and they have an article on their website there. The buttonholes, I practiced with before I got the buttonholes on. So if you have an extra piece of material laying around or something like that, you can go and practice on it if you feel like you need to practice. And that's one thing that I do feel helped me out a lot with this shirt kit, is practicing on some spare material first. Other than that though, getting these kits I think is a great introduction to sewing. You're going to learn a new skill. It's really not that hard. You're going to make some mistakes, but you're going to learn from those mistakes. And it is a great way to get a pretty high quality piece of reproduction equipment. Since I made this shirt, I've also put together one of the Richmond Depot jacket kits, and I have plans on putting together, you know, some of their Federal kits as well in the future. But overall, putting this shirt together was a great experience. It'll get your feet wet with sewing and learning how to sew in general, and you know, I couldn't recommend these kits enough.